Hello, class. Welcome to another episode of Web Development using PHP. Today, we'll be discussing about selection and iteration structures. First, the conditional statements. From the term conditional statements, before we discuss them, you should know that a conditional statement is talking about it is a statement that is executed but based on a predefined set of conditions. Now, the first example of conditional statement is the if statement. The if else statement executes some code if a condition is true and another code if that condition is false. So the syntax is as follows. If condition open bracelet, the code to be executed, else code to be executed. If condition is false, then close the parenthesis. So what is actually here just trying to give us the syntax of the if statement. The if condition, meaning the first condition, if it is true, then code to be executed if that condition is true. Else, execute the second code if the condition is false. Close bracket. This is the structure or the syntax to be followed. So we came up with an example. Now we'll look at the date, right? We declare a variable t equals to the date. We're trying to know the time, an hour of the night. So if you said if t is less than 20 hours, then equal have a good day, meaning it is during the day. Else, have a good night. So what this example checks is if the time given is less than 20 hours, meaning it is during the day. But if it's 20, it means it is night already. So that 20 was used in the convention of 24 hours time format. So which equivalent to what? We say 20 minus 12, that will give us 8. That will be around 8 p.m. It's trying to tell you if it is less than, that means it's within the day. But it is above 20, it is within the night from 8 p.m. upward. So now, the second condition execute only if the other statement is not true. But if it is true, then the else part will be ignored by the interpreter. Else, if it is false, the else part will be executed by the interpreter. Now, that is an example of if condition statement. We can use it with different examples of our choice. Now, let's look at another form of if, which is if else if statements. So this if statement execute different codes for more than two conditions. So when you have multiple conditions, say you have from a group of colors, you want to check if else if statement is the best option to use. So the syntax is as follows. If condition one, code to be executed if the condition is true, else if we pass this, that is the second condition comes in if the first condition is not true. Code to be executed if first condition is false and this condition is true. Else, code to be executed if all conditions are false. So that is the structure. So if condition one is true, execute. No. Execute if condition two is true. No. Go to condition three if not. Up to else, that is if all the conditions are not true. That's when the else condition will be executed. Well, from our previous example, if you look at it, we declare our time equals to date. Date we pass in the parameter the hour. So if the time is less than 10, echo have a good morning, meaning the time is morning. Else, if the time is less than 20, have a good day. It's talking about afternoon within the day. Else, have a good night, meaning if it does not fall the condition of less than 10 or less than 20, that means it's night. So this is an example of how to use the if else if statement. Now, the nested if. The nested if condition consists of if else statements as well as the if statement. There's two conditions here. Nested if statement and if else statement. If you look at the first condition, if condition, that's an if statement. Second one, if nested condition, that's another if. So two ifs are what? Combined together. So if the first condition, this second if execute only if the first condition is true. Otherwise, the else condition will be what? Will be executed because the second if is dependent on the truthfulness of the first if. All right. Now, although you can use this And this nested if on the previous examples we have discussed. Another control structures that we'll be discussing is break and continue. The break statement terminates the whole loop early, whereas the continue brings in the next iteration early. So this break statement and continue statements are paramount in any programming structure because they help in dealing with the issue of branching. So let's now look at the example to understand these two statements properly. If you look at that example, it was made using the for loop. For I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus plus. What's happening there is, if you look at the end of each expression, there is a semicolon telling you that that is a complete statement within the for loop. And that is the syntax of for loop. So, I equals 0, indicating that I has been initialized to start counting from 0. While I less than 10, meaning you should be counting while the expression is executing until it reaches less than 10. While the I plus plus equals I plus 1, I plus 2, I plus 3. So what if you look at the first expression, I is 0. So when we say I is equal to 0 plus 1. Next we have which is equals to 1. Next we have 1, I equals 1 plus 1, which is 2. Next we have I equals 1 plus 2, which is 3. It keeps going on, it keeps counting until it reaches less than 10. Now that we understand what happens in the first line, the second line is saying is a conditional statement using the if statement. And it's trying to check for the equivalency that if I is equivalent to 5, continue. So what that statement simply means, you pass the if statement that we just treated in the previous slide, that if I is equivalent, if you look at the two equal to, we've discussed about it as an operator, which is checking the equity or equivalency. Meaning if by the time the I counter reaches 5, continue. So if it reaches 5, meaning what? Continue the next iteration. If you remember, we said that continue brings in the next iteration early. So if that condition is true, then it continues till it stops. And finally, echo I, meaning print out the value of I. So now, the next we're going to be looking at is the switch statements. The switch statement is used to perform different actions based on different conditions. While it has a different syntax, this switch statement works with conditions as well, just like an if statement. First, the switch variable. The variable will be the name you decide to give that condition. Case value 1 would simply means the first condition, followed by the code to be executed. It breaks. And the essence of break in this is this here is how a switch works. It's used to perform on different conditions. If that condition is satisfied, the break statement will terminate the execution. So it will not move to case 2 or condition 2. Meaning, since that first condition is true, there is no need to execute the rest of the condition. It continues. If that first condition is not true, then it moves to condition 2. It continues in that fashion up to default. But mind you, by the time that none of these conditions they are all executed and still they are not true, it's the code under default that will be executed. Now let's look at the while loop. The while loop loops through a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. So while 2 will keep working when the conditions are true. If not, it terminates. While condition, it keeps running that code until that condition is met. So if you look at our previous example where we use a counter, we can also use the while loop to do the same thing here, and it runs in. So the do while loops, it loops through a block of code once and then repeat the loop as long as the specified condition is true. So the difference between the do while loop is it first loops through the condition once and keep executing until the condition on the while is satisfied. So you can look into that too, and so many examples are also available. For loop, we've looked at the for loop already. First, we initialize. Second, we pass the condition. And third, we pass the increment. in our example, we said for I equals to 0, that was initialization. The condition was I should be less than 10. And the increment should be I equals I plus plus, meaning I should continue incrementing 1, 1, 1, 1 until the middle condition is satisfied. So this now brings us to the end of this class. As we look at so many control structures, we've seen the if condition, we've seen the if else, we've seen the if else if, we've seen the nested if. From there we continue, we also look at the break and continue statement. From there we move to switch statement. We also look at while loop. We forge it to also explain do while, and now we terminated looking at the for loop. So these are conditions that are very key. Take your time, study, and go through this video over and over again. Read more. Look for examples to where you can see they are applied. Study them to ease your understanding of these course. So from this, the class continues where we shall delve into look at more examples of these related terms. Although we should know that these are repetitive statements that are very important in passing out conditions in programming. So this particular programming is a key task. So it's good that you understand control structures as they are paramount in any given programming class. In fact, not just paramount, as you write your code, you tend to see their ease of usage, and they give you like control over your coding, which is very key. Control structures are very important. They simplify your work. They make you achieve multiple tasks within short lines of code. So this now brings us to the end of the class. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.